And a bowling court this morning with Dr. Agnes Zani, a nominated senator, also a deputy secretary general of ODM. Also, I do have with us this morning Senator Okong'o, who is a member of parliament from Nyamira. We do have with us as well Jeremiah Kioni, who is the member of parliament from Daragwa, also the chair of TJRC. We do have with us as well Dr. James Jikal, who is a member of parliament from Sene, and also Samuel Pogisio, who is a senator from West Pokot, also chair of the delegated legislation committee in the Senate. Gentlemen, let's continue pace with this conversation, but now I want us to look at what also was on yesterday's Daily Nation, a cyber story there, if I may just pick it up. Duale U-turn on TJRC report raises eyebrows. It says the unexpected remarks by National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale that President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga should take advantage of a March 9th handshake and implement the Truth and Justice Reconciliation Commission report has exacerbated the notion that Jubilee is slowly breaking up while contributing to debate on logging of trees in Kenya's water tower. Mr. Duale said time was ripe to implement the TJRC report, whose fate remains in limbo since 2013. It is the first time Mr. Duale was discussing the report since he tabled it in Parliament almost 5 years ago. There has been pressure to implement the report from Mr. Odinga himself and also from various activists, but the government has always maintained a studious silence until Mr. Duale spoke this week. And it continues to say that I saw Mr. Odinga was trying to evade the TJRC issue. We must deal with the TJRC issue now. Yusuf Haji and Adam Zolo should not look anywhere. Come and pick the TJRC report because you don't need any scheme of work other than the report. Pick the report and implement it. This is what Mr. Duale was saying. And of course, people were wondering why is he really pushing the envelope right now and saying it is not tabled in Parliament, and he himself has the particular report. Let's just begin from with Dr. Jeremiah Kioni on this. Dr. Zani, let's just begin with you with this particular report. Mr. Duale, now he has a report. He says he should be tabled in Parliament while he still has the report. Don't you think that is a bit?
I think what is amazing is that there's a procedure in Parliament about how reports come in and how reports are dispensed. And you remember Dibal, that the TJRC report has been there for a long time. The TJRC report took about almost 2 years to actually bring to fruition, and it had a committee of commissioners that went around the country. The TJRC report is important because it actually addresses grievances of social injustice and actually gives the solutions for the same, and actually put into place measures. In fact, that report was different from many others, and that commission was different from many others because it actually put into place ways of ensuring that the recommendations that they put into that report were going to be catered for, and therefore it was important for that report to have come up from the word go, and that it should have been discussed within Parliament. By this time it should have been discussed. I think it's coming now because of the dynamics of the political situation at the moment. I think the new theme of addressing and looking at issues of corruption, the new theme of delving in and looking at a level of cooperation in enhancing that issue is brought into place, Dibal. Because even if you look again, the lifestyle audit also is in place, and many people have been brought to the fore and they've been questioned. And again, there's a hue and cry, which is in some of these papers, of members who are feeling that as a result of the lifestyle audit, they've been put into a corner. I think it's about culture and how you develop a culture of how you want to address corruption. If you want to address corruption, you must have a mechanism of addressing it, and you should follow through that mechanism. That is what will move us and catapult our development the way that development is meant to take place.
So you think it's being politicized? So there's no really that will to table this report. It has been 5 years down the line, hasn't it, Jeremiah Kioni?
The issue of that report will continue. It's a political thing, and
what's the politics around it?
I mean, those who, I don't know. The first thing is that there are people who are claimed to have been unfair to others. And those individuals must be known by names. They must be in a system somewhere, or they have retired. It's a complex thing, and even for the leader of majority to just talk about it that way on the floor, you couldn't quite tell where we were going. But it's not a report that will be implemented by one government. It's something that we must commit ourselves to deal with, and it will be dealt with over time. And I think every other government that comes must be seen to have done something to that report, because it is true that many areas, many people have been injured, hurt, treated badly in the past, and there is need to make sure that that is not just swept under the carpet. I can tell you that in Daragwa we also are going to be part of the beneficiaries of that report, because a lot of our public land was grabbed by individuals who had power some given time, and we also have an interest in that report being tabled and debated. But it is certain that from time to time it will be played around, it will be wagged like the tail for political reasons, one would want to be seen by certain quarters, some corners of this country to be the one fighting for that implementation, and portraying others as the one refusing to implement it. But I think it is a report that needs to be dealt with. Why Duale chose to talk about it last week, I think you can only wait to see which direction he would want to deal with it now. Again, knowing very well that it is him who can bring it to the floor of the House. It's not Dr. Daktari here or myself. We can only wait for him to table it and for us to debate it. But iko siasa mingi ndani yake.
Iko siasa mingi, and this is the siasa you don't want to tell us. I want to know about this siasa. Let's hear from Okong'o.
Yeah, I think first, Duale, failure to debate that report is again a reflection of the culture that we have in this country, whereby we retreat to sectarian and ethnic interests. And I think what Mheshimiwa Kioni is not telling you is that people feel that if there is full debate of that report, then there are some people from certain areas who may be hurt and who may negatively be affected by that report. And I think by Duale speaking, he wants to hurt some part of the political class in this country, and that's the reality. But I think looking at the bigger picture, you can imagine the kind of money that this country put into that committee that prepared the TJRC report. You can look at the number of people who gave their views, who are pregnant with expectation that once this committee finalizes its report and its recommendations are made, then remember the word justice, then we shall have justice. That was the expectation from the people of Kenya. Now, Duale, just imagine how these poor Kenyans feel that 6 years down the line, we have not had anything about the TJRC report. It was brought to Parliament, I believe just tabled, but just to put it in the order paper and allow the members of the National Assembly to ventilate, to discuss, interrogate, and do a framework, you know, for its implementation has never happened. I must say it's something that reflects so badly on the way we do things in this country. And I hope we can have the likes of Jeremiah Kioni, who is from the National Assembly, and Nyikal, to push this agenda on the floor of the House, to insist that that report should be on the order paper for debate. And then we challenge Duale to walk the talk. Now the sad thing is that, you know, instead of having a structured implementation, we are doing an amorphous implementation of the TJRC recommendations. You know, one of them was...
which is worrying that Jeremiah Kioni is saying that it can be progressive.
Yeah, but we should... Why
can't we have timelines?
And structured. You know, we can have something that is structured. You see, we need to move along with everybody in this country. You move to... Let me tell you how amorphous it is. The president will move to coast and give title deeds to some people at the coast or in Meru. But you see, the TJRC recommended that we should have full adjudication of land in this country, and everybody who is entitled to have a title deed should have a title deed. Now, if Parliament had debated that report, we could have had a structured mechanism of dealing with the issue of land injustice, where those who don't have title deeds, we can now say every part of this country, people should get title deed. That has not been done. Another thing was a very simple thing. The committee just said, let the head of state come out and apologize to the people of Kenya for the atrocities that have been visited against them. In 2008, Kevin Rudd in Australia, you know, was so magnanimous that he came out and gave a public apology on behalf of the Aborigines in Australia. Now, what is so difficult by us just debating that report in Parliament, and then we say, please, Mr. President, you are now the sitting president, come out and offer your apology to the nation. Now, if we don't deal with these things are again cropping up. You can see what is happening in counties where the British, in quotes, you know, some companies own tea estates. You are seeing some clamor by county government saying, we are going to take over these companies. It's because we pushed that report under the carpet. We don't want to debate it, and those issues are now emerging. They are going to pose another problem, the economic aspects problem, land aspects problem. That is the kind of, you know, trouble that we are exposing this country into. The issues of police brutality. You know, we wanted to deal with this once and for all, so that we don't see a situation of extrajudicial police killings. We needed to debate it and deal with it, enact laws, etc. So my urge is, if we love this country, if we need to do away with these historical injustices, let's debate this report and have a structured way of implementing the recommendations, which were very good, that were in that report. So
there is a deliberate attempt not to actually, table this particular report, because we know the different aspect of the justices will come to bear, and some people will get affected when it comes to retributive justice. Yes, if you took my land many years back and you have, an expansive tract of land in this country that you don't have the corrective or the papers that are actually aligned with what the act is saying, you don't own it legally, that will go back to citizens. The issue of restorative justice, right? The issue of what again? Distributive, restorative, and the other. You can tell us, Mr. Pogusio.
Thank you very much. This report is being awaited by the people of my county, very, very, very serious. I've been waiting for long.
From your county, yes.
West Pokot County, because that was one of the places that really suffered injustices, from long historical land issues to the military operations and so on, and the suffering of being subjected to the people. They've been waiting, and nothing is happening. But on the front that it is Duale saying it, it brings a bit of confusion to the public.
Yes.
Because the person who is supposed to navigate government business in the House, he should not be the one crying before and saying that it should be brought, because he's the guy mandated to navigate that business in the House. So I think what he meant to do, in my view, is trying to introduce that subject into the agenda of the Building Bridges team, so that when it comes out with the report, that they should be able to discuss that. But I think that's again jumping the gun, because the team that has been set up, was it 14-member team, that is going around and preparing to give us a report. We'll definitely look at that. That's one of the things.
But isn't that a duplication? If you already have a report, then why do we go again?
Well, maybe they look at the implementation matrix. I don't know. I'm not part of that. The thing about it is, the president and the former prime minister shook hands. This is a handshake season. The only way to shake hands with the whole country is to implement that report. You will have actually taken care of a big hand from the public, and then we go forward. I think that the implementation of that will get people to rest certain issues, really bring peace in the country by implementing that report. So I'm looking forward to it. I'd like to be part of the. I particularly like to see that, and I think again one of the interests that Duale has,
yes,
is maybe the issues that happen also in his part of the world. The Wagala massacre and so forth, and the injustices. But bring that together now in terms of government and shake the hand of the public.
Right. So from a people of Pokot, when you look at what I've just mentioned, the distributive, restorative, and retributive justice, what will be your portion from the people of Pokot?
Even just an apology.
Just an apology.
Even an apology. There are Pokot who are still exiled in northern Uganda up to now, from the old days, that have not come back home. And there are many other issues, like people lost thousands of their livestock. And of course, there are people who really just were tortured very badly. Those things are in that report. They're in that report. And so I'm saying an apology, but also there was a lot of land taken by force. And the Pokot were pushed out to the north, to where I come from now, the dry north. And that's how we were pushed into Uganda and so on. So basically, there is a lot that we stand to benefit. But if we can come to terms with it, and tell us, really, this is the retributive part of it, we will be able then to say, fine, let's come to closure on this matter. Otherwise, there are many families that are still very much suffering.
Right. Let's hear from Dr. Nyikao.
That TJRC report, Mr. Duale, is something that should have been brought out, discussed, and implemented a long time ago. As somebody that really saw firsthand the result of the chaos in 2007, 2008, I think it was the most important way forward in that whole process. The fact that has not been tabled, discussed, and implemented, in my view, is a serious fault on the country. But that Duale is saying it at now is actually a reflection of the big problem we have in politics and even in parliament. And it is even probably bigger than what we are discussing. That actually, as politicians, we tend to deal with matters to fit political interests, sometimes if they are narrow or sometimes when they are appropriate. We refuse to face the truth as it is. So now we are willing that it should be discussed, and we have not been willing because now it is politically appropriate, or maybe it is going to serve some particular interest. And that's the danger we have. And I think it goes back even to what we were saying about the committee issues, that actually politics affects the working of parliament, in my view, in a very negative way. Instead of looking at facts as they are and dealing with them, we want to look at them as what political interest at that particular moment it is serving. And I think what Duale is probably seeing is now at this particular moment it will probably serve some interest that he himself understands will be in his favor or in favor with some people that probably he would like to be favored. And that was said earlier, it's the same thing like Honorable Kony was saying, that you go to the committee, and when the person who is being questioned comes from a particular political persuasion or ethnic area, then you find people really supporting that, despite the facts that are on the table. And I think that is what is happening to TJRC, and that is why Duale is talking now. That it should be done, we all know. That it will help this country, we all know. But we seem to be now looking at, if we do it now, what do we gain? And if we continue like that as a country, I don't think we'll go. We must face facts that they are. That report should be out, discussed, and implemented.
Right. Jamal Kuni,
I was going to just say that if it is implemented for purposes of political gain, then we'll still be ruthless. It needs to be implemented for the good of this country. And again, I want to agree that we need to have it implemented in a structured way. What I was saying, and I still think is the correct thing, is still not I think it will be expecting too much for one government to implement all the things that are in that report, because these are injustices that people have suffered for a long time, back from 1963, and we would expect that it is structured in such a manner that every other time there is a government, there is a portion of that report that it is putting in place so that we can move forward as a country. And I think what we must try and avoid doing is using it as a political tool. You know, when it is used to gain political mileage, then you also give false expectation to people.
Right.
And that may also hinder the implementation of that useful report.
So if we have Dr. Zani, if we have a report that actually is gathering dust on the shelves there, within whose remit is it for them to push this particular report to be tabled in Parliament? If this particular report has been there lying dormant for 5 good years, a lot of money has been spent on it.
Minority leader.
Minority leader.
Yes, they are the ones who should put the agenda that are not.
Minority leader, so they've been sleeping on the job. Yeah?
the remit to me lies with the members of the parliament. It lies with the leadership. You know, first of all, even the responsibility, really. Already there's a mechanism of a report. When a report is handed on the floor of the House, there's a mechanism that is followed. But finally, the business committee, the procedures business committee of the relevant houses has to ensure that it's actually put on the order paper for it to come. Now, in that committee sit various leadership, including the speakers and including the various leaderships within the parliament. So for it to have been missed out, definitely there was an agenda for it not to come into place in the first place, because if it was to follow that procedure, and clearly, even as Mheshimiwa Kiome talks about the minority leadership and them asserting that this report, everybody in Kenya has been talking about it over and over again. And we have always said that the TJRC report should come, because, you know, I think the various aspects of the report, and we need to really be careful about that, because there's the restorative aspect that's meant to address the injustices and actually say, now we're restoring and changing, and therefore that becomes a big source of unification for the people. There's also the reparative aspect, where you're paying back, and there were two levels of reparation. There was reparation at the individual level, and there's a reparation at the group level. So for those communities that had suffered injustices, they were meant to be addressed like that. At the end of it all, remember, it is TJRC, Truth and Reconciliation. Half the problems we're in now in Kenya would never had if we had actually faced this report and addressed the issues in this report. And this report addressed many issues, very, very broad, including massacres, including sexual violence, including economic crimes, including historical injustices, including land issues. So if it came to the fore, it would really give us, I think it is something about the culture of Kenya. We really don't want to sit and re-examine ourselves for the future, for ourselves, to build a stepping stone. And this is what this was all about. And I think in countries where they've been able to put their report, because I think somewhere along the report, probably certain members have been vindicated directly. Maybe they feel that, you know, I will be personally liable for one or two things. But I think there's a bigger story. And even if it was difficult to implement the whole report, certain facets, for example, addressing historical injustices, this should have been done. Now, the strength about this report is that it had there was a mandatory nature to the commission and to the report that was put into place, and that the implementation and monitoring mechanism was also put into place. You know, the implementation and monitoring mechanism was put into place into this commission purposely, because before that many commissions would come up with various recommendations, and then the problem would be these recommendations cannot be implemented. But this particular report already has an inbuilt mechanism for implementation and monitoring. So it should have just actually been come on the fore, and then the operationalization of that mechanism needed to be rolled out. And this is what makes this particular report very, very specific and very, very laudable, because no other commission had been mandated to do that. And the reasoning for that is that whatever they say, therefore, doesn't go to gather dust. So if this is the time that it comes, I think we should look at the macro picture and look at maybe certain specific issues. And yes, it will be politicized, but I think for the good of this country, when all the other broader issues, the issues of ethnic tension, are handled in that report, the issues of economic crimes, land and conflict, minority groups, sexual violence, all these are actually already inherently there. It was a commission that did a lot of work and traveled around the country and actually has articulated all these injustices. And I think, as we have said here, if members of these communities actually feel that it's been addressed, and it's been addressed with an open hand, then they will also reciprocate. Sometimes it's about letting people talk, understand what the problems are, reconcile, and then people can move forward. It's difficult for people to move forward when they feel that certain things have not come out and been discussed, and a roadmap created for how to move.
Maybe the question that really comes to bear as well is the issue of handshake and some of the sentiments within some of the agendas that we do have under the 9-point agenda, like national ethos. Are we trying to reinvent the wheel when we put out this committee, the 14-member committee, and still having, you know, to tackle the same issues that have been tackled in these reports? Right? We have another sitting that all this has been captured within the TJRC report. We're talking about national ethos. Whatever that national ethos is, we fail to understand. We still have the Article 10 in the Constitution that maybe can actually give us, you know, we can actually put our character under this rubric of Article 10 of the Constitution. So when we talk about national ethos, don't you think also that is a bit amorphous, is a bit not really clear when it comes to the 9-point agenda? And we just duplicating what we still have within these particular reports. Let's hear from you, Jeremiah Kioni, right? Well, then we'll come just sequentially, please. We are inventing, aren't we?
I think we were in a political situation where a handshake was necessary, and we needed to let the country move, because by doing something, I don't want to call them anything else, but doing something that would help the country move forward, and that happened, and it is useful that it happened, and we need to encourage that those are things that should happen in going forward. We have the team, the 14-member team that is moving around the country, I am told. I haven't had them yet, but and doing what the best can. Some of us are keenly waiting to see how it will be introduced into, how do you get it to move without having to deal with the constitution. Because one thing that is there in the constitution that we did on in 2010 is that it covers virtually all these areas that we are of concern, and they even provides for mechanisms on how you can alter, change them, improve them, and that's my main interest on how are we going to deal with the provisions in the constitution. And I think it will be, it's always good to continue having this kind of exercises, perhaps even if nothing new comes, amplifying what is already contained. It's like a form of civic education. It helps us to move on. Just like the debate that we have had here on the TJRC report. It helps us to, you remember, before that time we were all quarreling, why is it that we cannot set up a commission? And it was a big battle to even get the commission together and allow them to move around the country. Now we have a report in the shelf. So it's some progress, very slow, a bit annoying. Now we have a team of 14. They'll move around, they'll come up with things. I hope certainly many of the things will be in the shelves, and perhaps the new political environment may help us move a few of those things a little bit forward. So I don't, honestly, I really don't expect much from the 14-member committee.
You don't expect much?
I don't expect anything different from what we have dealt with as a country.
As a country.
It is really a question of how do we move with the issues that already have been identified. Which of those issues can we put in place in the coming days?
Actually piling up on the issues that we do have.
Yes, yeah.
So we'll be just
nothing new. There's nothing new, they'll say, but it is really a question of those old things we identify. How do we continue dealing with it? I wish they can isolate 2-3 of them, and we deal with them, the country will move forward.
Right, and then we'll be having another fancy looking report, but still the same sentiment, same issues, just a different name, and maybe emboldened differently. Yes, then we stash it away, we collect another 5 years of dust, then we still be on the same panel.
The issues are never static. An environment always keeps changing.
It keeps changing.
So the dynamism of those issues changes.
Thank you.
You know, all these things are linked. You have actually asked and stated things that are actually connected. One, you asked something that we have not really answered clearly. Who should take the responsibility for tabling this report in Parliament? We have not answered that.
They say the minority leaders.
Yeah, that's not really correct.
But minority leader sits in the business committee. They should influence it to come on the paper.
Yes, I will come to that.
Yes.
Then now you are saying, what is national ethos? You know, you asked an extremely important question linked to Article 10.
Yes.
Then you are saying the committee of 14, is it not just a duplication? All these are lying on one fact, Duale. One, how do you place things in Parliament in the work? If you have absolute majority, you control even the House Business Committee. And so what will even sit there, because the House Business Committee, like all other committees, the majority of the members will be actually from the ruling coalition. Again there, you have control it. So the minority can try to bring it in there, but if the majority say no, it will not work. The same when it comes to Parliament. Now, when then you say, is it not a duplication if we have a committee of 14? The committee of 14 came from a handshake, and the handshake was at the highest level. And you would expect that if that handshake is genuine and these things are going to work, then it is going to unlock it such that the majority will now see the need to see the things correctly, and therefore the committee would at best even say, this then should be done, this then should be done, this then should be done. We don't expect them to go and do it. And then when it comes, say, to putting this thing in the House, the majority will now see, okay, it is now in our interest, we have agreed, we want to move the country into, we are bringing it. If that is not there, then whoever brings it, it will not work. It still lies with the majority. The ethos is, we can have laws, we can have constitution, it is written, it is on the paper, but if in the hearts and the beliefs of the people they do not ascribe to that, then people will always find ways of circumventing it, ways of ignoring it. And again, the only group that can stop that is the people who have the majority, who can, when you go to Parliament, when you go to the committees, when you go to the East, for example, the House Business Committee, will say this is the direction. So my understanding of the handshake was that at those two levels, the two agreed, and therefore the person with most power will now release that power through Parliament, through committees, for things to happen. So I have a lot of faith in the 14, so long as the handshake, the two gentlemen involved are equally committed to it and will use it to drive the 4 agenda. Otherwise, we will just be at square one.
All right, and we don't. Yes, let's hear from Samuel Pogiso.
Yes, thank you. And I just wanted not to spend too much time on this myself, but I think when Duale mentions Haji and Olo, he's referring to the 14-member committee. So he's trying to put that agenda there. But have we exhausted the part where Parliament plays? That's the question.
Yes.
Because before even mention putting it elsewhere, have we exhausted our role as parliamentarians in that? And if it is gone through the other house, it should definitely go through both houses if possible. At this point in time, it's so crucial that this matter comes before us. This matter is debated. I tell you, we're not the only country to go through this. When the situation in Rwanda was worse in some places than us.
Yes.
And they had to have these Gashasha courts where people actually spoke to each other candidly. And then they healed. The country is healing faster. South Africa did the same. So what's wrong with our TJRC? The TJRC report was supposed to be akin to that in South Africa and parts of what's in Rwanda, but ours is still in the gathering dust. Why shouldn't we get it out? And Duale is a key player in that, in bringing it out. Duale has so much influence in the House. He has so much influence in this government that he should not be the one asking another person to do it.
Yes. So Duale, if he's listening to us, you should not be shuffling blame of why it's not been tabled. You are the one actually to do it. We're still eagerly waiting for you to do it. And of course, in light of the spirit of healing the nation, when we are talking about reconciliation for all these years, and this particular document is very pivotal, in healing the country. If we open the pages of TJRC, that's when we begin talking about reconciliation. Even the spirit of handshake, what are we actually trying to push is a spirit of reconciliation. When we feel that we had a very divisive, politics and electioneering period, that the country was, really divided. We drove wedge in between. When we are talking about reconciliation, I think this is where you, the parliamentarians, need to pick up now the baton and make sure you bring this debate in the House and debate it so that we can start healing this country.
Let me just bring
we should not just be having a talk show, but we want to see action from this talk show. And that after here, at least some of you, and I follow these proceedings.
No, we will. It is likely to end up being even a better talk show, even in Parliament. I'll tell you why. There was a clamor to put a commission together so that we can record these injustices. Duale was key. He was the deputy chairman or something in ODM. He was pushing for the commission to be put in place and for them to correct views. And they corrected views. And then he finds himself in the best of places to implement it, and he's not using his position to implement it. I mean, this is why I'm wondering, what is it then we expect? even from this handshake.
Yes.
They are the people who at times I thought would be there to help us implement some of these things that were so difficult before, are in positions of power. Positions they should be seen to be doing what they always advocated for when they were not there. But when they are there, everybody is comfortable. It is you wait until things get a little bit uncomfortable, then you say we must implement this report. So that's what I'm saying. We should not be using these things as whips, political whips. You know, you just want to talk about it when it is not convenient for you for where you are, or when it is convenient for you to move on to another place.
Yes.
And for as long as we are not, we continue having that political dishonesty, these things will continue being discussed in talk shows.
In talk shows. And this is not the forum to actually discuss these things truly. Right.